Why, hello, you amazing, beautiful people. Welcome back to another Lord of Mysteries cut content reaction video. We are now fully under swing, catching up on Lord of the Mysteries. Reactions going out regularly on the main channel. If you're not watching those, you absolutely should be. I really want to make sure that when I'm watching this anime series that I'm properly getting everything, that I'm not missing that much, that I'm taking everything in. And luckily, I've got an awesome community that's been helping me in the comment section when I'm missing some things. And also, you guys have been giving me recommendations to other videos to watch, but I really kind of want to stick with the ones I know, and that's AniNews. Now, AniNews has been recommended a lot as well, because AniNews does these skipped or cut content videos. And apparently, these videos are going to help me quite a bit as well. So yeah, I'm excited to check them out. Also, our boy AniNews is so close to 700,000 subscribers, so if you're not subscribed to AniNews, please go support them. Link to their channels in the description. They're the ones who put the time and effort into making these wonderful videos. Anyway, if you got any more recommendations, let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe, and listen to my first time of reaction to the Lord of Mysteries Episode 2 cut content.
We are guardians, but also a bunch of miserable wretches constantly fighting against dangers and madness. Such a quote defines what it means to be a Beyonder, but for Klein, becoming one meant something a little bit different. It was all part of his efforts to get back home. Still, choosing to do so wasn't easy, and gaining the rights to become one was even more difficult. We just didn't get to see it since the whole event which earned him that right was left out. There was a whole cutscene involving this guy and Klein's assistance in capturing him. Aside from this are the insane amounts of lore the anime simply can't include, so...
The thing is, because sometimes people get annoyed when, like, animated series leave out these things from their original source material, you need to remember, and I think a lot of us, to be honest, know this already, they just can't fit everything. They just can't fit everything. I mean, it's been that case forever, hasn't it? Not just in anime, but books. Like Lord of the Rings, like Tolkien's original works, the movies don't capture everything, even though they do a bloody good job. The Hobbit definitely doesn't, even though it's 3 movies. And yet you don't that's just kind of how it works. And it's the same with like Harry Potter and the freaking Game of Thrones. Like, I think of a book and a freaking TV show or whatever right now, you know what I mean? So it's just how it is. It's a shame, but it's just how it is.
If you're curious to know more about different sequences, Roselle's diaries, Beyonder powers, or just grasp the story a little bit better, stick around as this will cover all of that. Let's get started.
Let's go.
Episode 2, Beyonder, covering chapters 19 to 44 from Volume 1 of the web novel. With Klein now aware of all the risks associated with becoming a Beyonder, it was also important to know they weren't as powerful as he might imagine. Like, when it came to guns or any other ranged weapons, a low-sequence Beyonder really wasn't any match for them. That being the case, it was yet another thing to consider when choosing to venture down this path of his. The main things to be wary of becoming a Beyonder, it was also important to know they weren't as powerful as he might imagine. Like, when it came to guns or any other ranged weapons, a low-sequence Beyonder really wasn't any match for them. That being the case, it was yet another thing to consider.
That is actually something I didn't even think about. I honestly did not even think about that. The fact that a gun could literally... That is actually brilliant. Because so many, forms of entertainment always kind of ignore a gun. You know? Like, I mentioned Harry Potter. I mentioned it again. Harry Potter. They, you just get forms of entertainment, especially when magic's involved. They just ignore weapons. Like, weapons are just suddenly useless. It's very awesome and actually weirdly unique that Lord of Mysteries doesn't.
Consider when choosing to venture down this path of his. The main things to be wary of would always be the influence of the potion, though, so as long as he didn't consume the wrong potion and took his time to grasp control of his powers, the risk of losing control himself would remain low. Why would Klein even bear all that risk in the first place, though?
Wants to go home.
You gotta remember it was solely to find a way back home. If he was ever gonna return to the life from which he came from, then Klein knew he needed to understand the essence of mysticism here. Now, a key difference that leads to a major story shift in the novel is that even if Klein wanted to become a Beyonder right now, he wasn't allowed to since he still needed to prove himself. Whether that be by interpreting critical ancient documents or something else, his position mostly depended on the arrangements of the higher-ups. How then did Klein proceed to prove himself? Well, that's a bit of cut content we'll talk about later on in this video. For now, Dunn would go on to explain the responsibilities of all the other civilian staff members. These were the tasks Klein believed he would be responsible for as well, but as it turns out, Dunn had something else in mind. His only tasks were to find hints of the notebook's whereabouts and read all the literature in the armory. Next, Dunn would point out the large structure known as the Chana's Gate, identifying it as a core component under every central cathedral in every major city. Next, Dunn would point out the large structure known as the Chaunis Gate, identifying it as a core component under every central cathedral in every major city. It was founded by the man who created the Nighthawks, and behind it lay potion formulas, magic materials, and even a holding ground for heretics, mutants, cultists, or other nefarious people.
A holding ground? What do they mean by a holding ground? And also, did they mention this? Because this is something I actually missed in the show if they did mention it. That is interesting, because I did ask what was behind the door. So knowing what's behind the door, I don't know if I'm excited or disappointed. The holding thing excites me. What's that about? Is it like a prison behind there?
It is always guarded by at least one formal Nighthawk member, and inside are 2 keepers provided by the church. Countless traps defended it as well, so under no circumstance was Klein to ever go beyond the Chaunis Gate. Inside were all sorts of classified documents and records, then in the basement were items known as sealed artifacts. These were extraordinary tools that, if placed in the wrong hands, could cause immense destruction.
Is this like the weird clown dude we saw?
Some even have certain living characteristics, and that could go to influence their surroundings, attempt to escape, or try something even worse. So, in a way, these...
So is it kind of like that weird fucking thing that everyone loves? Like, what's it called? Section 42 or something. That weird thing that everyone, like, we did a reaction to it ages ago. What the hell was it? What was it? It was like, it's like a list of documentation about weird creatures and monsters. It's like a made-up thing on the internet. I can't remember what it is.
Sealed artifacts were kind of like SCPs. Anomalous type...
SCP! That's it! That's the thing!
Entities that needed to be strictly monitored and controlled. These artifacts are also graded on a scale where, at the top, they were extremely dangerous and not to be talked about in any capacity, while anything lower could be used with specific limitations or basic care and moderation. The lowest grade was still considerably dangerous, but as long as it was used carefully, it could be brought out for operations that required 3 or more people. Now, to quickly know how dangerous an artifact was, one simply needed to look at the numbering. For the one in Episode 3, this was 2-040. The Grade 2 sealed artifact number 40.
Okay.
Dunn would then mention a corrupted archbishop who lost...
So it goes all the way up to 0, 3 being the weakest. This was a 2, and it nearly killed the entire team. That's insane.
...control and stole one of the most
dangerous
artifacts. That's
actually crazy. If it wasn't for Klein, they'd all be dead.
But that's a story I'm sure will be mentioned later.
Actually, that's not true. The other guy with his shadow, he was able to act as well, wasn't he? But he just chose not to.
Of the foreshadowing they did give, though, it was received like a very ominous warning, since this was one of the artifacts they couldn't even keep records on. Everything about it needed to be passed on verbally. Never could it be written into words. It was after this that Klein would be sent to see Neil, a once formal member of the Nighthawks no longer suitable to handle cases anymore. He had refused to be a keeper of the Chaunis Gate, so now he simply spent his days accompanied by his documents and records. Documents Klein was sent to help him arrange here. This would first be after Dunn had given him his advance payment, since as someone who's seen his place, Dunn felt Klein needed an upgrade. He also needed to purchase a cane and a new suit too. It was then that Klein would turn to head to Old Neil's, but
the cane and the new suit, I don't remember them saying he needed to buy it. I just assumed he did. But is it like part of his uniform? Was that something he actually was required to go get?
2 more times, Dunn would interrupt him to remind him of something else. For protection, he needed to carry some demon hunting bullets. Then for practice, he was to go to the range and fire 30 regular bullets daily. The police owned their own underground shooting range, part of which could be used by the Nighthawks. So this was all part of making Klein ready for his next tasks. After this was a cutscene introducing the character Oriana, since she was the accountant who would give Klein his pay. How did she end up working for the Nighthawks? Well, that's a story not too different from Klein's. You see, it was 16 years ago that a serial killer was terrorizing the city, butchering women in a series of gruesome murders that left them gutted. Oriana was about to be that killer's 6th victim, up until the Nighthawks had saved her. As it turns out, this butcher was a Beyonder, and his numerous victims were all part of a sadistic ritual preparation for the devil. Well, Oriana was luckily spared from it, and it was ever since that she'd been working for the Nighthawks. It was while Oriana was sharing all that Klein would also be admiring the money he was given. As someone so absurdly passionate about it, Klein couldn't help but take in the money's magnificence. He would also recount the figures imprinted on it, both of which were former monarchs.
It's weird how just adding this like kind of financial thing to it weirdly gives me like a video game element, you know? And I've said that before about Lord of Mysteries. It does have like a video game kind of element. And I feel like it would actually make it an excellent setting for a video game.
Was Henry Augustus I, who Klein felt an indescribable closeness to, then William Augustus VI, the man responsible for freeing the Lowen Kingdom from the shackles of the Old Order. He had enabled his nation to regain its spot at the top. So, that was all the tidbits of lore from prior to Klein's meeting with Neil,
one of
an
those
encounter which would
strange.
introduce the Emperor Roselle more. When it came to his lost diaries, the reason so many copies existed was because many believed Roselle never actually died. They instead think he became a god himself, hidden from society but still worth worshipping.
Oh.
It was at all these cult rituals the Nighthawks would occasionally find Roselle's notebooks, leading to the ones Neil has in possession here. Now, the records Klein read were pretty much the same in the novel, but the one about the guy trapped in a deep darkness also mentioned he could approach reality on the day of the full moon every month. His entry about potions highlighted the importance of...
He could approach reality on the day of the full moon every month. I don't remember specifically about this, but the meetings that Klein has, those are weekly, right? Or does he have to have like a full moon for those meetings? What does he mean he can approach reality? Also, that's interesting because if he says he can approach reality, didn't the person who wrote these speak in the same language? So, like Klein, did he say Chinese? So that would imply, based on that this person came from Earth like he did, and by reality, maybe they mean Earth. You know?
Acting, as well as the name of the potion being the key to digestion. The next entry came from 9 months later, and that was the news of an opposition forming against him. With the Faesek in the north, the Lowen from the east, and the Faina Potter in the south, all Roselle's enemies had joined together to fight him.
Is Roselle that
Roselle
bad?
was confident he would...
Why are all his enemies joining together to fight him? Is he bad or are they bad?
...come out on top, mentioning something about higher grade sequences. His next entry was about losing communication with a ship seeking the forsaken land of the gods, then the one after was about a woman named Ithaca who he seemed to like more than Florena. That last one wasn't really that important, but all the others bore priceless information Klein could take advantage of. Digesting and acting were extremely significant, then this forsaken land of the gods seemed quite important too. It was when Klein was brought back to reality that his inquiry for more entries led to quite the interesting revelation. You see, with not many Beyonder-related incidents happening anymore, there haven't been many opportunities to procure these types of resources.
That's interesting. I assumed that there was loads of Beyonder instances happening because of what we've seen. I didn't know that there had been a weird decline. Is there a reason for that decline?
Potions were becoming more and more scarce since, over the past few centuries, the monsters required to make them have become more just records and books. What I mean is that you'd be hard-pressed to find dragons, giants, elves, or even sea folk anywhere. This led to some jokes about creating the Fantastic Beasts Protection Association, then proceeded into the matter about getting bullets for his revolver. It's here where the anime starts to really branch off, since rather than segue immediately into Klein becoming a Beyonder himself, he instead leaves, runs into Leonard, who Klein quickly perceives as a little bit gay, then goes home to settle all his household affairs first.
For fuck's sake. They really glossed over that. He then runs into Leonard. Klein's like, a little bit gay, and then just moves on. Alright, yeah, sure, whatever, man. For fuck's sake.
There was an interesting line where
That was
Leonard
such a
makes
gloss
a random
over.
comment seemingly to no one, but that was just an action Klein didn't look very much into. Now, it was right before Klein would leave the Nighthawks that he would first have a deeper conversation with Roseanne. The whole thing essentially fleshed out her, since Klein was asking questions pertaining to Beyonders while she was doing everything she could to convince him not to become one.
Oh!
Since her father was an unfortunate casualty of it, this whole realm of mystery was an area she disagreed with wholeheartedly.
Oh,
It was a
okay.
sentiment backed by some rather wise words from her father. 2 weeks before he had sacrificed himself, he had mentioned how one should never think they can resolve hidden risks or combat by simply becoming more powerful or a higher sequence. To him, it was actually quite the opposite. In the end, death and insanity were the only two outcomes, and that was a fact which proved true for him especially.
Oh.
That's when Klein would insist he only wanted to know the basics, so after a bit of pushing, Roseanne would finally cave for him. She would reveal high sequence Beyonders were going extinct. There were only about 30 or so Beyonders in their entire city to begin with, but when it came to those who were really high up there, very few were still around anywhere these days.
This is something that I don't know if it's been properly addressed. The idea of these Beyonders being like this endangered species and all of this sort of stuff's like running out and potions running out and the monsters not being around anymore. Like almost like this is becoming a thing that isn't regular anymore. I have not really kind of gleaned that at all from the anime, that there's like a ticking clock on these people, that in like 100 years they might not even be around in the same way they are now. This is something I feel like the anime hasn't really mentioned, so if it has, I've very much missed it. I do apologize if I have.
Then, for the Beyonders
It's
who
interesting,
were
it does
around,
change things,
most
though.
were only at Sequence 9. Roseanne then spoke about the path the Church of the Evernight Goddess held full possession of,
Is there a
identifying
reason
their
most are at
Sequence 9
Sequence
as
9?
the Sleepless. This was someone who didn't need to sleep at night. It's not like they didn't sleep at all, but unlike a normal person, they could get by with only 3 to 4 hours of it during the day.
Oh.
Their other powers were the ability to see through darkness without any lights, an increase in power the deeper into the night it was, enhanced strength, intuition, and mental capacity when it was night, then an innate ability to detect unknown dangers that lay in the dark.
This sounds pretty fucking great, to be honest. Like, I imagine most of their missions are going to take place in the evening or at nighttime, so to have an immediate, like, general buff to all of these different elements, pretty great. This one sounds pretty
They weren't so strong as
sweet.
to possess any supernatural abilities, though, so in order to fight monsters, they still relied on bullets or other means. After that was the Sequence 8 Midnight Poet, then beyond that was the Sequence 7 Nightmare. These were the sequences Leonard and Dunn were at, and Dunn was one of only 2 Sequence 7s in the entire city. That was all Roseanne knew for that path, so Klein would then ask about more of the other Sequence 9s. He was looking for whichever allowed him to study and grasp more knowledge. If he could somehow end up on a path like that, then he figured he could.
This was also something that I felt like was left out of the anime, because I really felt like Klein's decision was just like, he walked into the first room, went in there, hey, what are you? I'm a seer. Cool, I'll be a seer too. That's kind of the way it came across. Like, he didn't do like his research, work out what everyone did, what buffs he'd get from every single one. Like, that felt like it just wasn't there. So it's nice to know that that decision making was actually there.
Leverage that to find a way back to his old life. Unfortunately, the only one Roseanne could recall was Mystery Prior, then an incomplete Sequence 7 title by the name of Spirit Medium. This would be all the information Klein could get, leading to his departure and eventful journey back.
So they found nothing on Sequence 8, but they found some on Sequence 7? I didn't realize it could work that way either.
Back home. It's
Can you
here
skip
we
a
get into
sequence, or
quite
do
a
you-
bit of
or
cut
can you
content
find
too,
one but
the
not
topics it
drink the
deals
potion
with
till you
aren't
drink the previous
entirely
one?
important. There was Klein's stop to purchase the cheapest yet most practical cane he could find, a review of the Lowen Kingdom's regulation on firearms and weapon permits, a brief moment practicing the draw of his gun over and over, then the reveal of his new job as a consultant to Melissa. Klein wanted to go out to eat to celebrate, but Melissa insisted he save his money instead. She was even against moving out too, since to her, their living conditions weren't as bad as they could be. This then led to a whole chapter of Klein trying to convince Melissa otherwise, citing reasons like societal expectations and marriages. Melissa was still way more concerned with financial stability, so this was a conversation the two would have to have later. For now, Klein would have to deal with other matters, specifically the job interview which he now needed to withdraw from. This brings us to a scene in the university, and is actually the place where we first meet Azik. That, however, is a scene from episode 3, so we can leave that one for later. What comes next is probably the most important cut content so far, since it's a sequence of events earning Klein his spot as a Beyonder. The whole arc is 4 chapters total though, so unfortunately this will be a very basic rundown of it.
Okay.
Just remember, Klein doesn't get to be a Beyonder just because he wants to. It's a position he first had to work for. As for the way he had earned it, well, in the novel, it was because of how he handled the man who was following him here. Turns out he went beyond just stalking him on the street, and even went so far as to break into Klein's house. He had done so at a time when Klein was asleep, but thanks to a timely warning from Dunn in his dreams, Klein was able to wake up and force the man out. Leonard and Dunn then took care of things from there, revealing the man to be part of an ancient organization known as the Secret Order. An underground.
So they left out this entire part? Okay. Seems like a big thing to leave out, doesn't it? You know, the whole reason that Klein became a Beyonder. And this guy, like, breaking into his house and everything, seems like a big part. Obviously, just watching the series, like, I can say it's not needed. I didn't think it was needed at all. But knowing what it represents feels like a big thing.
Group established in the Fourth Epoch and related to the Solomon
Managed to do a good job without it, though.
It was from them that the Antigonus notebook had originated, and it was only due to their negligence that it was lost. So it was this man who was tasked with retrieving it, unfortunately leading to his capture here.
Yeah.
Now, normally the Secret Order was very difficult to deal with, so the fact Klein was able to assist with the capture of one of its members, well, that was a contribution worth rewarding. It's because of this that Dunn would present him with an offer very few were given. He could either continue accumulating merit and wait to qualify as a worthy member of the fully complete Sleepless Path, or become a Beyonder now and choose one of the Sequence 9s from the 3 other incomplete paths they had. The first was the previously mentioned Mystery Priors, and that originated from a strictly confidential group known as the Moses Ascetic Order. They were a strong-willed order centered around the maxim, do as you wish, but do no harm. Their Sequence 9 potion granted a rudimentary understanding of anything magic-related, so that included witchcraft, astrology, and any other mystical knowledge.
Wouldn't this have been a good one for Klein if he wants to, like, pursue a magical sort of development journey and, like, get home? Wouldn't the one around magic and all secret magic and secret magical information have been the good option?
Mystery Priors also became knowledgeable in a great deal of magic rituals, but that opened the door to the ability to sense certain existences they maybe shouldn't. Beings hidden amongst matter they'd have to be careful around.
And this is why they said, like, ignore those sort of beings.
And this gave anyone who digested it the same properties an undead would have. Unintelligent dead spirits would mistake them as one of their own. They would gain resistance to the cold, decay, and corrosiveness of deathly auras, then they would be able to see evil spirits and the characteristics or weaknesses of undead.
It's kind of like a clairvoyant.
This was a path the church actually had the Sequence 8 and 7 potions to as well, one you might recognize as Daly's spirit medium. Finally, there was the Seer path, and consuming this potion granted a greater understanding of astromancy, cartomancy, spiritual pendulums, and granted a greater understanding of astromancy.
Astromancy is a divination that interprets the positions and movements of celestial bodies. Okay.
Cartomancy.
Fortune telling by interpreting a random selection of playing cards.
Spiritual.
A divination tool used to access subconscious knowledge and guidance.
Pendulums and scribe.
That actually sounds well cool. That sounds well cool. Imagine, like, just being able to unlock all your subconscious knowledge and, like, memories and that sort of stuff. Because there's actually memories that are locked inside of your brain. And they're called, like, you have them as, like, trigger memories where you'll see something, like a video game or a sweet packet or something, and it will immediately unlock a memory that's already inside of your mind of a moment in your past that you haven't thought about for years. Imagine if you could access all of those memories freely.
That didn't mean he'd understand all of them immediately, but it did grant him the ability to learn it. It was a path not necessarily suited for fighting, but in terms of knowledge and mysticism, it was far better than the Mystery Prior. The only setbacks were the incomplete nature of the path itself, its inability to be used in combat well, the risk of losing control as a Beyonder, then the overall believability of Roselle's diaries. As stressful as such a choice was, though, all that was incomparable to the terrible feeling of not being able to return to Earth again.
I really hope that they do that right, because this is something that nearly every isekai doesn't do right, and that's the character wanting to go home. And I like that so far, Klein's big motivation for everything is to go home.
You see, after recalling all these fond memories of his past life, Klein knew the only right path was the one forward. It was one only achievable by becoming a Beyonder. Fast forward past a couple chapters of Klein choosing his new house, moving out, then moving in, and that's when we finally get back to the Blackthorn Security Company. Klein would express his intent to become a Seer, stating how the other pathways just didn't meet his requirements. Now, when I said taking the potion would only give Klein the ability to learn about mysticism, what I meant was that there would be 3 places from which the knowledge he was seeking would come from. The first was experimentation, summarization, and enhancements. The second would be from the gods themselves, then the third the dangerous murmurings and illusory enticements Beyonders were occasionally exposed to. There were sometimes cases where these mysterious voices would describe matters related to mysticism. Should one try to listen to those voices for a bit too long though, there was no doubt they'd eventually go mad, fall to corruption, then become monsters. It's for those who do.
Is there a going back once you become a monster? Because, like, the transformation process seems like something you don't come back from. Like, you look fucked up.
Unfortunately,
I don't know if you can come back from that.
It's their notebooks that are usually filled with all sorts of valuable information. In any case, Klein taking this potion didn't make him a formal member of the Beyonder team. He was still to be a civilian staff member, simply because it would take time to adapt to whatever power he develops.
Oh, okay.
I mean, to go out and take part in paranormal missions right from the get-go, well, that would mean certain death for sure.
Isn't that exactly what he did?
When it came to building the potion itself, for sequences of 7 and below, those typically didn't require anything other than the exact ingredients. Where beyond that, one might have to participate in the ritual on a spiritual level. For 7, 8, and 9, one simply needed to follow the formula and mix it. In fact, not all the ingredients even needed to be exact, as for the Seer potion in particular, it was only the last 2 that needed precise measurements. They could be slightly under by just a little bit, but if they were ever too much, then anything from a mental breakdown to death could happen. So it's those last 2 ingredients that were put in with great precision, and it was once finished that Klein would proceed to ingest it. The anime does a great job animating the entire process of it, but for those wondering why he needed to envision what he did, it was also he could stabilize his mind and gain control again. By focusing on something he knew, he was able to mitigate the potion's energy and reduce any seepage of it.
Something that I felt like the anime didn't really address either is Klein's reaction to the potion, because the guy seemed like all like, what the fuck is with this kid? But then once Klein was back, never like went into it anymore. So, was Klein special in any way?
Next, Neil taught him how to manage the physical manifestation of the potion's powers, and this was through a method called cogitation. It was a meditative state that converged the potion's powers inward. It was while in this state that Klein would be able to see and understand the truth, revealing knowledge only he himself could understand. It was a unique phenomenon classified as a mystic experience, something only possible while in this state of cogitation. Neil would then teach Klein spirit vision, one of the most foundational abilities for pretty much any Beyonder. It was a mystical power that would allow him to perceive supernatural and non-physical phenomena. It wasn't a power one developed naturally though, but was instead something he would have to train. So, first Neil would have him discover his aura, one of 4 non-physical parts split from a person's biological body. Aura was part of a person's ether body, and that reflected a person's physical health and emotion. On the deepest inner part was a person's soul body, and that referred to their...
Imagine how fucking amazing it would be to be able to look at someone and immediately go like, alright, well you need to get this checked out, that's wrong and this is broken. Like, imagine that, like some incredible x-ray machine.
Spiritual core.
That is next level.
Beyond that was the astral projection,
I didn't realize how
that was a person's spiritual connection to the cosmos. It was the part most commonly used for divinations and spellcasting. Finally, there was the body of heart and mind, and that was the connection to one's brain and mental capacity. For potions that improved one's analysis and observation, this would be the area it would typically target. So, for now, Klein would be focused on aura, where every color he would see would indicate something different. This applied to the astral projection level as well, meaning Klein should be able to easily read how a person was feeling too. Finally, he would see inanimate objects didn't emit spiritual traces like organic ones, but materials from extraordinary beings did. Though the creature it came from was dead, some of their leftover parts still carried what's called remnant spiritualities. They were typically the parts most crucial to potion making. Now, I know episode 2 still has that whole part with Leonard and Klein, but considering how far behind I am and the isolated nature of that specific incident, I might skip ahead to focus on the incident with the clown. I will try my best to keep making timely videos for this, but there's just so much content it's hard to keep up with it. That said, I could skip ahead to the current episode, or I could stay where we're at and remain 4 episodes behind. Either way, I should be able to keep it going weekly alongside the Overlord videos. You just might see a gap from like episode 3 to episode 7. But anyway, if you liked what you saw, then leave a like and be sure to subscribe if you want to see more.
Shout out AniNews. Shout out AniNews. Sorry if this reaction was a bit more quiet. I know these reactions aren't like the usual ones. I'm just kind of watching. And that's really the point. Like, the point is, because I don't I don't know if I'm going to continue doing these as reactions. That's the truth. Because I might just watch these in my own time. I'm kind of testing to see if you guys want these to be reactions, you want to watch them with me, and that's why I'm a little bit more quiet when I'm doing it. I'm just trying to digest all the extra content. I am really enjoying Lord of Mysteries. At this point, I've seen most of all the episodes that are currently out, and I'm nearly all caught up, and I'm kind of loving it. I'm actually surprised because there was a bizarre like divide on at least Twitter with the anime community about Lord of Mysteries, and I don't know why. Like, the more I watch, the more I love it, and I don't think it's as complicated as, for some reason, people are making it out to be, and it is complicated, massively so, but it explains itself quite well. You have the opening, which goes over the 22 sequences over and over again, so there's a lot that which my comment section loves reminding me for some reason. Every time I ask a question about the sequence, they're like, opening, bro, and it's like, look, I know, whatever, but yeah. But overall, once you just start watching it, I feel like things start flowing in and it starts clicking into place a bit. But I really want to make sure I'm properly digesting everything, which is why I'm now doing these ones. And now we're back to sort of our normal scheduling. We're back to normal. And AniNews just does an excellent job of doing it. Even though this is cut content that not necessarily is needed in any way, I feel like it does help with your understanding of the anime. I do, because it goes into cut content around scenes that are already established and then does anime comparisons. So they help me, at least. So if they don't do too well for reaction videos, that sort of thing, I'll just watch them in my own time. But if you guys are enjoying them, then I'll just keep doing reactions to them, because I do really enjoy just watching them. The episode 3 one is out, and there is a bunch of Overlord videos as well that I want to watch. So I'm probably going to check those out too. Anyway, because I have actually seen the Sacred Kingdom. Anyway, like, subscribe, have yourselves an amazing freaking day, and let me know what other reactions you'd like to see, and if you want to check out my Lord of Mysteries reactions, they're over on the main channel. Anyway, have an awesome freaking day, and as always, my friends, you right there will see me in the next video.